Experience is always late. Take the car keys example. You are about to leave the house. You get into your car and reach for your keys, but they are not there. You left them inside. You blurt out, "Damn." The movement that led up to the damn moment is the experiencing. That is the movement in stillness. It will have no trace in autobiographical memory. The damn moment becomes the experience. It is the conclusion of a movement that led up to it. Experience is always late. The thing experienced has already passed when it becomes experience. The damn moment ended experiencing because it produced the owner, someone who got it wrong, someone who has to go back. It is not the flow that memory records. It is the break. Experience is very sporadic because it is produced when there is a break in experiencing. What amounts to personal or social life is the collection of these sporadic experiences. But there are so few of these compared to the full array of experiencing that we can hardly call it a rich life. We want to make our life rich by having more experiences. When thought stitches them together, it feels like these experiences are almost continuous. It creates the illusion of a rich life. Our life experience, regardless of how wealthy you are or what you do, is actually ragged. It is not that we need to experience life more. It is that we should stop chasing experiences in order to enrich our memories. The chase starts with comparing yourself to others, which creates the feeling of having less. And the feeling of having less creates a thought of needing more. Had there been no break, the whole movement would not have been registered in memory. It would have been of no significance. What memory preserves is not the continuous activity itself, the walking, the reaching, the carrying, but the breaks. Continuity is thought. It is what thought concludes by connecting them afterward. This makes up a very fragmented experience of life. This is not saying that all breaks are the problem. Corrective memory has its place. The keys are needed, you left them inside, you go back to get them. But corrective memory breaks the movement in order to serve the movement. Without wants, without regrets, without should-haves. It's not personal. Regardless of who you are, how you feel, what your cultural background or beliefs are, corrective memory operates the same way. Where no self deposits itself around the error, the break corrects and the movement continues. In a simple case, you forget the keys, you go back and you get them. No self deposits itself around the error. The problem is not that the movement breaks. It is the self colonizing the break. And the self is nothing more than a reaction, desires, ambitions, wants, likes, values, and preferences. The self is not an entity. It seems like one because the organism looks at itself through thought, through desire, through ambition, through what it should or shouldn't do. The organism is fooled by thought into thinking there is an entity inside it. Thought would be that entity, a foreign object that claims to be the self, the driver, the controller, the owner. Consider choking. Something obstructs breathing. The body isn't fighting the blockage. The obstruction changes the conditions, and the body does what it always does, breathe, but differently. The gagging is the breathing mechanism hitting an obstacle. The obstruction gets cleared as a consequence, not as a goal. There is no future time in that struggling, no intention towards survival. The body does not care whether it survives or not. Such intention would be a break in the flow. If there were somebody in the body who cared about survival, that care owned by somebody would be a break in the flow. The break would be recorded as an experience, but it is recorded as an experience. It is called the self. The body does not live in time. The future does not exist. It simply responds to a blockage, involuntarily. Thought cares about survival, but not of the body, about its own. There is no phantom agent behind the body's response. There is movement, and the movement is orderly. That orderly movement is not added by a self. It is the quality of the movement itself. Walk into an orderly room and you feel it immediately. The river does not want to reach the sea, yet its movement around the rock is not indifferent. What the self adds is not order but claim, converting responsiveness into wanting, protecting, fearing. Thought fragments. The problem isn't that thought fragments, but that it isn't aware that it fragments. Thought mistakes its construction for reality, including when it builds unified theories that claim to transcend fragmentation. Thought doesn't have self-perception. It doesn't see that the realities it constructs are constructions. Science builds understanding from parts upward, assuming the whole will eventually emerge. It ends up with an infinite library of data, but no book. Spirituality moves the other way, seeking a unified state through finite tools. But the act of seeking reinforces the fragmentation it wants to dissolve. You cannot use a piece of the puzzle to find the box it came in. This does not mean there is a hidden essence underneath, some unified field to be realized or achieved. That would be the same move Advaita made, concluding a unified essence from non-conceptual bodily functioning would turn observation into metaphysics. Something dead, something that exists in memory, something that you will follow or that will give you instructions and explanations. Unlike science and spirituality, the living organism does not handle its own functioning as a construction of parts. It does not strive to become part of a whole either. The apparent fragments are like tentacles, not disconnected units. The fragmentation is in the representation, not in the functioning. The observation is simply this: an immense amount of coordination is occurring. The organism acts as a whole. The apparent intelligence of orderly function is not the order that thought creates. When thought reaches toward a solution, it reaches into its own inventory of beliefs, not into the problem itself. The problem does not tell you how to solve it. An ideology does. That solution is bounded by the belief it comes from. Bounded order applied universally does not extend intelligence. It exports disorder into new domains. A machine solves one problem. It cannot solve all problems. Dynamic intelligence is not a more powerful machine. Dynamic intelligence is order. That movement is the same order that is in the orderly room, in the river, in the body responding to a blockage. Not because someone put it there, because that is what orderly movement is. Life or consciousness can only be partially experienced, because experience divides it into the experiencer and the experienced. The moment the subject becomes the object of experience, an element of it remains behind. The looking itself, which is never seen. That movement is not elsewhere. There is nothing to be reached, not in any place, not in any future time. There is no that beyond this to be found. Seeking that as something other than what is here is seeking something that doesn't exist. However, without a division between this and that, this has no meaning either. The experience of both that and this is not so different. It's a mental picture. If you want to reach some ideal state, some universal consciousness, true self, or true nature, through meditations or integration exercises or practices or instructions, it will never happen. Movement in stillness does not mean movement on one side and stillness on the other. Stillness is not something that needs to be achieved. It is there in listening. It is movement before conditioned thought has divided it into named parts and invented meditation. There are no waves without water. The waves are water. They are not two different things. So, when the word movement is used, it is not a description of a thing. Impressions of it are not it. The pointing itself is part of the movement, and the awareness of the pointing dissolves it. Nothing remains to hold.